I know I'm a little late to this one, and the US's next game is already within 12 hours from when I'm recording this. But of course, I had to talk about the US losing their first game of the World Cup to Lithuania, 110 to 104, where the US got in a big hole early and were just not quite able to dig themselves out, even with some late full court press, getting steals, missed free throws, some craziness that looked like maybe the US could get back into it, but ultimately they weren't able to. And now was not an elimination game for either team. This just decided who topped the group. And for what this means in terms of the tournament for the US, losing this, you could view it as actually a good thing because it means the US goes to the easier side of the bracket, away from your Canada and your Slovenia. And instead of playing Serbia, you're playing Italy. And so, from that perspective, this loss is great. But the US showed that they could be beaten. And I mean, that's something I said in the last one against Montenegro. After that game, the US showed they could be beaten if they played like that against better teams. And you see that here with Lithuania. One thing I just want to get out of the way is I knew this was coming. When the US would inevitably lose a game at the World Cup, I hate how every time there's like all these headlines of like, the US gets humbled. Oh my God, shock, defeat. It's like, if you're actually paying attention, this is not some crazy shock that the US could lose to Lithuania. Like, Lithuania is a very good team. This is international basketball, but people obviously just see US, Lithuania, and think it's a big shock. US were definitely favorites coming into the game, but I think anyone who actually pays attention would know that Lithuania always had a chance coming into this game. And so let's go into what went wrong for the US. The first thing that you can see is the rebounding. It was the same thing against Montenegro. It's inevitably gonna happen that the US gets out rebounded. Like, that's just kind of something that they've accepted, I think. But you have to minimize how much you get out rebounded by. Like, there's a point where it's just you can't survive if you just don't get any rebounds. And I mean, I think they were close to a point where, I mean, they could have won this game. If Lithuania didn't start off the game 9 for 9 from three and just had super hot 3-point shooting throughout the game, if they didn't have that, then sure, the US could have won this game. But something has to change in terms of rebounding. It's why Josh Hart got put into the starting lineup. But you're starting Jaren Jackson Jr. at center, and there's a reason he doesn't play center in the NBA. There's a reason the Grizzlies have Steven Adams next to him, one of the best rebounders in the NBA. And it's because he's just not a good rebounder. And so you need other guys around him that can rebound. So Josh Hart, sure, he can rebound, but still lacks a bit of size. And then who else is rebounding? Brunson's small. Ant can rebound. Mikal Bridges a little weak at times against bigger players, can push him around inside. So the starting lineup, it's definitely a struggle to rebound. And the bench isn't too much better, especially when they go with a bench that's like Paolo at the 5, and then you have Brandon Ingram, who hasn't been a great rebounder, with Tyrese Halliburton and Austin Reeves. I think the one guy, and I said this against Montenegro, that I really liked what Bobby Portis was bringing, and immediately in this game, when Lithuania started super hot and was out rebounding the US, I was like, put in Bobby Portis for Josh Hart, because he just gives you more size and rebounding. And I think him playing the 4 next to Jaren or Paolo or Walker Kessler, I think that's probably what this team needs in terms of size. And then you just have Jaren getting into stupid foul trouble. And that's rough. He fouled out in this game. He only picked up his 5th foul, late, but so much of the game he was in foul trouble. He started off fighting against Valanciunas and picking up just a foul, fighting in the post. That was just dumb. He could have been called for a lot more fouls that ended up being called offensive fouls, but those are just ones that could go either way. I'm not saying they weren't offensive fouls, but just the refs can call those either way, and they do call them the other way all the time. And so it's a real problem when you have then Walker Kessler coming off the bench and not looking great. And or other than that, you just have such a small team. Like Jaren just has to stay out of foul trouble, and he just can't do it. And then offensively, this was the Anthony Edwards game. He came out, took the first 4 shots, made his first 2, missed the second 2. And then, other than him, it was still a struggle to find who was going to be that second scorer. And Brandon Ingram had a better game scoring the ball. He had 10 points, 5 for 8 from the field. But I thought he was horrible in every other aspect, whether it be, I mean, his defense was horrible. He didn't rebound well. He's still not passing the ball super well. It's a struggle still for Ingram, even when he is getting 10 points. Anthony Edwards finished 14 for 26 shot attempts, and then Brunson had 10 shot attempts as the second most on the team. The offense definitely didn't end up being the ultimate problem in this game. They scored 104 points. Anthony Edwards with 35 points. That's fine. 104 points is going to get you by a lot of the times. But when they're playing such a up-tempo style, there's just going to be more possessions. So when they're allowing so many points on the other end due to rebounding and not closing out on shooters super well, you're going to need to score even more. And Austin Reaves has cooled off from his hot start to the tournament, only getting 7 points. He is still getting to the free throw line, went 5 for 5 there. I don't know how he does it. So much of him getting to the free throw line, it's not even like him attacking and getting foul calls. It's literally just him catching the ball in the perimeter and then someone randomly fouling him or fouling him in the backcourt. I don't understand why it's always him, but I mean, it's good, but it's weird. But Austin Reaves was getting absolutely exposed in this one. And so was everyone else, all the other smaller guys on the team when there were mismatches. And for some reason, the US just refused to throw any bodies at the problem. Like, I don't understand why. I mean, you're afraid of Lithuania's shooters, I guess rightfully so, because they were making shots. But you can't let them just get wide open layups every time because they're backing down Austin Reaves. Like, you have to send someone. That was really hard to watch. Like, just send someone and then play team defense and get in rotation. Like, it was just very confusing to me, and it wasn't until late where they finally decided to send a body at someone, and then it totally worked and they forced a miss. So I just think that that's something that the US should do more of, and don't let other teams play one-on-one so much. The US was down 17 at half and then had a great third quarter, led by Anthony Edwards on both ends of the floor. I thought he was great. They were forcing a bunch of turnovers and getting out in transition, and that's something that they just couldn't do in the first half because Lithuania was making every shot. And it's a lot harder to run on made shots, obviously, than misses or turnovers. There's no doubt that Lithuania's shot making was insane in this game. There's no doubt about that. And I doubt in the next 3 games, if the US plays 3 games, the possible quarterfinal, semifinal, final, if teams don't shoot like this, which is probably pretty likely that nobody's going to shoot like this again, then the US is going to be favorites. They still made it close in the end, despite getting out-rebounded by a lot and despite the hot shooting. And so, obviously there, you can take a positive away from that. But like I said after Montenegro, this team is beatable. And I don't think that they just have some switch that they can flick that just says, we're going to lock in and win this game now. The only guy that has a switch he can flip on this team, I feel like, is Anthony Edwards, who you can just see when he's decided that he's going to do something. Ant just has that superstar mentality. He's not afraid to miss a bunch of shots if he knows that his team needs offense and needs to get back into a game. He's not going to be afraid to take shots and try to get them back into the game. Halliburton had one of his more quiet games of the tournament, still 7 assists, because I just don't think it's possible for him to like go out onto an NBA floor and get under 5 assists in a game. But still, I don't think he had as much of an impact in this game as he has in past games where he's been like the best player or second best player on the team. Mikal had a nice game shooting the ball and defending, and that's something this team definitely needs is shooting, because coming into the tournament I wasn't that worried about the shooting, but then I think when you have Anthony Edwards, who isn't really hitting from beyond the arc and is going to do a lot of his scoring inside the arc, and then you have Brandon Ingram, who isn't hitting from beyond the arc, then the shooting is going to come down to Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, which isn't a good thing, Austin Reeves, Jalen Brunson, like some of those guys, Mikal, that's fine. Cam Johnson, okay. But then you have like Bobby Portis and Paolo Banchero, like Josh Hart, like I said, like Jaren Jackson Jr. It gets a little iffy in the shooting department. They don't have the most shooting of all time. They definitely don't have the least, and they have more than a lot of other teams, but they're not just going to outshoot any opponent. I was talking about being able to like flip the switch, and I do wonder if, I don't think they have like a switch that they can flip to win no matter what, but I definitely think like maybe in that first half they could have gone a little bit harder if it was an elimination game. I wonder if we'll see them more locked in for the entire game against Italy, but we'll see. Maybe not. Maybe that's just who they are, and that definitely could be. But you just saw in that second half, they definitely turned it up a little bit. Anyways, that is it for this episode. The next one will be after the US's quarterfinal game against Italy, which is, like I said, like 12 hours as of me recording this, so even less when I'm posting it. The other teams on the US's side of the bracket is Germany and Latvia. And then the matchups on the other side of the bracket are Serbia and Lithuania and Slovenia and Canada. There is no team in this tournament so far that I feel like just looks unbeatable as the out and out favorite. And, Germany hasn't lost a game and has looked good, but then I think the US can beat them, and they did beat them in an exhibition game. Obviously not the same thing, but they showed they could beat them. And then you have the US, who obviously got beat by Lithuania. You have Canada, who got beat. Like, I really think every team can lose, and I think there's a lot of teams with a chance to win this tournament still in it. The only teams that I would say maybe don't have a great shot, maybe I'll regret saying this, but Italy and Latvia, I don't think they're going to win it all, but I think the other 6 teams could possibly all win it all. So anyways, I will see you guys to recap that quarterfinal game against Italy, and hopefully we don't get a repeat of the result the last time the US played in a quarterfinals in the World Cup. Peace.